So now I'm very happy to introduce our presenters for this evening. First off, we have Vicki Brett-Gack. She is a certified personal chef, master certified vegan lifestyle coach, and plant-based culinary instructor. She is a graduate of Dr. McDougall's Start Solutions certification program and is Forks Over Knives plant-based certified. Vicki is trained in nutrition for a healthy heart and in dietary therapy for reversing common diseases. She holds certificates in plant-based nutrition through the T. Colin Campbell Center for Nutrition Studies, in the Neuroplan through the Neuro Academy, in wellness counseling through Cornell University, and in culinary coaching through Harvard Medical School and the Institute of Lifestyle Medicine. As a coach, Vicki works with individual clients, often helping them reverse health challenges and chronic conditions, and teaches whole food, plant-based cooking classes to groups of all sizes, with a focus on helping people learn how to make eating healthy easy. Vicki is the creator of the Ann Arbor Vegan Kitchen blog. Her recipes have been featured in the McDougall newsletter, Center for Nutrition Studies newsletter, and in multiple magazines and cookbooks. And you can stay connected with Vicki at AnnArborVeganKitchen.com for new recipes as soon as they are published and for additional details about her upcoming cookbook. And then we have Michele Gallo, who is a certified health and wellness coach, certified plant-based professional, ACSM certified exercise physiologist, and whole food plant-based culinary instructor. She is certified in holistic nutrition and holds certificates in culinary coaching from Harvard Medical School and the Institute for Lifestyle Medicine. ACLM Lifestyle Medicine for Coaches, T. Colin Campbell Center for Nutrition Studies and Plant-Based Nutrition, and is Forks Over Knives plant-based certified. She's the conference coordinator for the nonprofit Plant-Based Prevention of Disease. Okay, so Vicki, please take it away.
Well, thank you very much. We're really happy to be with you tonight. And we've been looking forward to doing, Michele and I have been looking forward to presenting brunch recipes for a very long time. So we're really excited to begin to sort of share what we think would be a lovely brunch. And there's so many different takes so many different directions you can go with each of the things we're making tonight. So we'd like to share all of those with you. So I'm going to start with my mixed berry oatmeal muffin cups. And actually all of the recipes that I'm making tonight are going to be in my new cookbook, which will be coming out very soon. I have an advanced copy of it, but it's not quite available yet, the hard copy, but the e-version is. So the ebook version is available for pre-sale, but this should be coming out literally within hours, possibly a couple of days at the most, but Target is May 1st. Amazon has all the information. So I'm just excited about this. I've been working on this project for about 18 months and all of the recipes I'm making tonight are part of that. So we'll start with the mixed berry oatmeal muffin cups. And so we begin with mashed bananas. I've got 3 in here already. I started mashing just to get the process going. We're going to preheat the oven to 350. And to these mashed bananas, I'm just going to make sure they're nice and, fairly smooth. There's a little bit of lumps, but it's okay because everything's good here. So we're going to start with this, and this is a really easy and fun recipe because these little muffins are really whole food plant-based. They're just full of great ingredients, and they're really nice for breakfast, of course, brunch like we're doing today, but they're also nice for a snack later in the day or with a cup of tea or coffee, or just as a light dessert or a little snack in the evening because they're really healthy, really satisfying, and they store nicely in the freezer as well. So we'll start with our 4 bananas. I've just got them mashed in a bowl. I'm adding to that a cup of applesauce. I use these little cups to equal, the little mini servings of applesauce. You can certainly buy or even make your own applesauce in a different, container if you wanted to buy a bigger one. This costs a little bit more this way, but I like that I don't have to measure it. So I just buy organic applesauce and can know that these are roughly half a cup. So I'm adding 2 of these applesauce containers to my bowl of bananas. And then I'm adding 2 cups of rolled oats. Everything just gets dumped right into this bowl. And then some dry ingredients. I've got some cinnamon, some flaxseed meal, baking powder, and baking soda. And then a couple of liquids, small amount of apple cider vinegar and vanilla, and you don't end up tasting, I will say you won't end up tasting the vinegar. It just kind of helps to sort of create a little lightness to this, as well as, and I mentioned the dry ingredients are on their way here. We've got cinnamon, baking powder, and baking soda that I'm adding there. And I'm going to give this a little start of a stir. And the cinnamon smells really good. And you can, what's fun about this recipe is I make this really regularly because I almost always have some kind of, leftover bananas that are starting to get really ripe. And although you can freeze them and do other things with them, make smoothies and bake with them later, I tend to just take ripe ones and just throw them into some muffins. And so now I'm going to add 2 cups of mixed frozen berries to this. And this is what's one of the fun things about this recipe. I've made a lot of different variations, mango and blueberry. I've used apple and apple pie spice. I've used fresh plums and nectarines in the summertime. This is just a really flexible recipe to just kind of flavor in any way that you like. And it's just so full of fruit. Every bite is, stuffed with all of these beautiful berries, as well as the applesauce and banana. So, and then you're getting all the grain goodness of the whole oats, as well as the flax. So it's just really nice and easy and fun. And so that's it. We got our batter. And now I'm going to just take a scoop and put a nice amount kind of rounded into each one of these muffin cups. And I'm just going to basically kind of use up the batter. So I've also used, made these, and these are really good too, with cherries. There's cherries in here in these mixed, this is a mixed berry that has cherry in it. I've made it with and without the cherries, but I've also made them recently with just cherries only, cherries that are, and 2 kinds of cherries, like sour and sweet. And that is also really delicious. And I just think these are really great because they're so easy. So we're just going to kind of, you get the idea here. We're going to just use up this batter and stick this whole thing. If you wanted them a little smaller, you could, add these to some new muffin cups, but I tend to just kind of overstuff and make these nice and big and round. So that's the idea here. So I'll keep doing that, and then I'll put it into the oven and it'll bake for 25 minutes. And when they're done, they look like this. I just made these a little earlier in the day so they'd be ready to show you. I'm going to come close to the camera, and these are all ready to enjoy. So they're just really moist, really soft. In fact, here, I'm going to put this down and lift one up just to show you how soft and moist they are inside. And they're really delicious. It's like a little baked oatmeal cup, so in the shape of a muffin, and they're really lovely. So, and they freeze well, as I mentioned, so they're a favorite here. Michele?
Those look delicious, Vicki. So I'm starting off with some bacon, some tempeh bacon. It's made, well, this particular one I'm making is obviously tempeh. I just said tempeh, but there are a lot of options. This is from Wicked Healthy Kitchen. They're my 2 favorite chefs, Chad and Derek Sarno, and they do a lot of wonderful things with mushrooms if you're a mushroom fan. But this one I'm just starting with. So the directions, I give you options for tempeh, mushrooms, and eggplant. You can use carrots, you can use rice paper. Rice paper is a little bit trickier because it can burn easily. But with tempeh, couple things, like it's a closer to a whole food. The soybeans are pretty well, you can see, I hold that up to you, can kind of make out the beans individually there. You want to get one that's pretty light like this. Sometimes you pick them up. I've seen this more and more lately where they're gray to black, which is not a good sign. You want to get it mostly white. If you are gluten-free, you need to be careful because a lot of the different brands or varieties do have gluten in them. The ones from Trader Joe's has gluten, and they do have a lot of varieties. I like to just get the original and season it or flavor it how I want. Now, I was taught that this is a good combination cooking food. So you want to think for the marinade, to really get absorbed well, it helps to steam the tempeh for 5 minutes, which is what I already did to this one. So, and then I'm just going to, well, first look at, put the marinade together. I've got 2 garlic cloves minced. This is, all these things Vicki and I are doing. Well, that one, the muffins were pretty simple and pretty quick, but a lot of these, they're simple, but they're not quick. You know, you have to do it, let it sit, marinate or whatever, but they're good. And I did not want to put that in there. So I'm starting with the garlic, and then 1 cup is a 1/4 cup of tamari or soy sauce. I tend to find both of those way too salty for me, and soy sauce does have wheat in it. I avoid wheat, so I use coconut aminos. Trader Joe's keeps telling me they're going to get them back in stock, but that's been going on for over a year. 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. A lot of times when people miss bacon, they miss that flavor profile of hickory and maple. So I really do like this combination. I don't at all miss actual bacon, but I like that flavor combination. So I've got the maple, and then following that up with the liquid smoke. Now, liquid smoke, a lot of people get, and I understand, get a little nervous about that, but it's really, you take the chips, whatever kind you're using. I brought a bottle with me this time. Where did I don't know why my liquid smoke likes to hide from me. Okay, I get it from a small company. There are no flavors or additives. Some of the kind in the, like Kroger and things, have caramel coloring and other things added to it. But this is just, they heat up the wood, and the smoke condenses, and it's that that condensation they collect and filter. So it's safe. To have anything dangerous with this, you'd have to have a huge amount. I'm only using 1 teaspoon for the whole dish, and you'd have to have, I think, like 4 bottles or something. But the same thing that gets people alarmed in liquid smoke is the same thing that's in coffee, black and green tea. So it's not, I don't think it's a concern. If you don't want to use it, you can use smoked paprika, but I think it adds a really wonderful flavor. So I've got the liquid smoke. I've got a teaspoon, well, it calls for a tablespoon of granulated onion. I found that to be a little much for me, so I cut that in half. I'm using half a tablespoon. I've got a tablespoon of sriracha. You can omit that if you don't want it, but it does add some nice heat. And I've got the salt and pepper that were in with my onion powder. So I'm going to just give that a mix. Okay, like I said, I already I already steamed my tempeh, so I'm just going to cut it into strips about 1/4 of an inch or a little bigger. And then just carefully put them into a dish, because they do break apart kind of easily, as I may very well demonstrate. And I'm just like, this can be used as you would, for bacon, and you can use it from BLT the next day, or, cutting them up into smaller pieces and putting them into a bowl. There are a lot of ways to use this. And the recipe calls for cooking it at 275 degrees for about 1.5 hours when it's for tempeh. The times are on there. However, not everybody has that kind of time. So you can also do, if you want to try like 400 degrees, doing it more like for 10 minutes, flipping it, and another 10 minutes. And I like to put the, the reserve, the marinade, I like to put more of that on every time I'm turning it. I did kind of bust that one up. All right, and I'm just going to put this on. Make sure everything's coated. And here it is. Some people marinate for for overnight or 24 hours. Some people only do it for 10 minutes. So it's kind of, what your time allows and what you feel like. The longer you marinate it, the more chance that marinade has to get absorbed. So it's going to be a little tastier. I did 2 different batches. I did one, that's why I wish we were in person, you could taste the difference. I did one at 275 degrees, nice and slow, and the other one I did at 400. This is what they look like when they're done. I don't want to spill them, can you see? That looks a little browner on the screen than what they are. It's just they're not, they're just like nice and brown. And that is what I wanted to say about that. So, like I said, you could use them for just, with the tofu scramble or hash brown, whatever you do, and then having, I know my son's taking bacon, lettuce, and tomato to work tomorrow. So back to you, Vicki.
Okay, thank you. That looks wonderful. That goes so great with our menu. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to prepare is called a tofu power scramble. And there's every variation under the sun that you can create with a tofu scramble. But I call it a power scramble because it's got lots of, really delicious power foods in it. And you can kind of mix and match. Again, this can be kind of a template. You can add some beans to this. You can add any vegetables in addition. But the tofu has lots of protein and it's got really a lot of staying power, and it's a perfect substitute for people of all eating persuasions, unless you're allergic to soy, of course, but even people who like eggs, find that tofu scrambles are really delicious. So what I've started ahead, because it does take a few minutes to do, and I was afraid we wouldn't have enough time to do every part of the process together. So I started by taking a pan a few minutes ago and starting a saute process with onions, a red bell pepper, celery, and tofu. And I just kind of crumbled the tofu up in a pan with a little silicone masher. But you can crumble it by hand, or you can, you can leave out the celery. I like that little bit of crunch. You can use any color bell peppers. If you don't like peppers, leave them out. You can add a jalapeno. I do that a lot of times. But to this now, I'm adding, and again, you can really truly make this very customized to your own flavor profile favorites. But now to that, I'm adding, now that this is nice and hot and kind of started to brown a little bit, you can kind of see that the onions are starting to kind of caramelize. Now we're going to add our seasoning. So I have in the recipes a scrambler seasoning mix, which I keep in a jar. So anytime I want to make a tofu scramble, I start with this base. And so it's nutritional yeast with some onion powder, curry, turmeric, cumin, salt, and pepper. And again, you can kind of create whatever flavor you can add or subtract if you want some additional onion or garlic or whatever you might like in there. And you don't have to do this. You don't have to use this, but it gives it a nice start to seeming like a great substitute for people who aren't accustomed to tofu. This is a really nice kind of entry into enjoying tofu, because it is going to turn this kind of yellow, and it makes it just that very familiar scrambled eggs looking texture and color. And so I'm going to show you where we're going with this. So I'm kind of mixing this in. It's all hot. Normally I do this all on the stove, but I just want you to be able to see this. And then to this, I'm just adding a little splash of Bragg's liquid aminos. You could use the coconut aminos, as Michele mentioned, or you could leave that out entirely. I'm adding a little hot sauce because I love this, kind of addition of some hot sauce to it. Back in the day when I ate eggs, which is well over a decade ago, I did used to like hot sauce then too. And now I'm adding a little extra curry. This is a hot curry, so I just like a little extra heat. But again, all of these are very customizable. Just leave it out if you don't want that. You could add some salt or pepper if you wanted to. And as I mentioned, the beans are a favorite. I often will do that. And now I'm adding some greens. And I took about 2 cups of fresh spinach, baby spinach, and I sort of did a rough chop on it. And I'm adding that in. I'm going to want that to wilt over the heat. And I'm not also adding a sweet potato. This is actually a Japanese sweet potato. It's white inside. And you may have had this before, and maybe not. Any kind of sweet potato works. And now to that, so I just actually microwaved this potato. It was a big one like this. So instead of 2 smaller ones, that's going to be my potatoes. And I microwaved it for probably about 6 minutes. I started with 4 minutes, and then just kept testing to make sure it was, until it was nice and tender. And so this is this beautiful color of all of this together. I'm just going to heat it for a second more because I really want this to wilt, the spinach, but of course it really doesn't have to be. Sometimes instead of the spinach, I will use arugula, or you could use kale as well. And now I'm just going to add a little splash of water because, and you wouldn't have to, but I just want to make sure there's enough moisture in here. If I was doing this all at once instead of prepping a few minutes ahead, I probably wouldn't have needed to add any water, but as it sat, it got a little bit drier. So I want this to really wilt the spinach. So we'll give it a minute here to see how far we get. And then it'll be ready to serve. So we can plate this up. I wish I had some of that bacon that Michele is making. But what I could do here is, put one of these lovely muffins on a plate, and then we'll be adding some of our tofu scramble to it. It's starting to sizzle, starting to wilt a little bit. So just to give you an idea, I'll show you again here what we've got. Normally I would let it wilt just a little bit more, but it's just in the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and plate this. And now I'm just going to add this to my breakfast platter. And this is so delicious, not only on its own like this, but wrapped in a tortilla for, leftovers tomorrow, or over rice for dinner tonight. So it could be used lots of ways. But now we've got that, our second dish, plated and ready to go. Michele?
Looks delicious. And I do wish we could be together and share with this what you just made, and the tempeh bacon and the muffins and everything. So
soon we'll do that soon.
Soon, yeah. So the next thing I'm making is it's called a vegan smoked salmon, but I try to avoid using those words typically because I don't want people getting an expectation that it's exactly like, but it's very close. It is really good. And it's super simple. And like everything else I'm making tonight, it's really easy, but it takes a while. So the first thing you do is take some carrots. I've got 4 in here, and I peeled them for this because when I roasted them with the peel on, which is usually what I do, I just wasn't as crazy about the texture. So I'm starting with this, and with oven preheating to 375 degrees. And I'm putting about a tablespoon of salt on here to help pull some of the moisture out. Doesn't have to be a lot. There have been some people that really, kind of cover it completely in salt, and you don't need to do that. So that's what I would be starting with. 400 or 375, 350, 375 for 40 minutes. You want to make sure you can pierce it with a knife, but you don't want it to get too mushy. So then after they're roasted and they are cooled off, then you slice them into strips. And you could either use a peeler or a mandolin. I caution you to be very careful with that, and with any of the techniques. Use a cut glove because you don't want to slide off, and just make them into strips. I just used a knife for these, and I'm looking for my bowl here. Okay, I'm going to put the making the marinade. Look at that. I don't know when I do this to myself. That was brilliant. So you're putting, I have it. I know I have it right here. I have the tamari again, 2 tablespoons. I have 7-8 ounces of boiling water, 2 tablespoons of smoked paprika. You could use the liquid smoke here if you wanted to. A teaspoon of garlic powder, I said the tamari, a nori sheet. So I took one of these sheets and I just put it into my mini prep little food processor, and I put it into a powder, which I'm going to find. Okay. Oh my goodness. Total blank here. So anyway, I'm just going to show you because I'll find it as soon as I leave. You take this, the carrots, and after they're cooled off, you're going to add a little bit of salt to them and massage just a little bit to try to get a little bit more of the moisture out of the carrots. You're just going to rub them like that. Just for a little bit. You can see they're nice and pliable. And then you're going to put them into the marinade, which I, for some reason, have drawn a total blank on where I put everything. So this is what the marinade is. So all together, you put it in, and here's another thing that you have to do for really want to marinate it overnight, preferably. The nori, it looks kind of like sparkly, like a magic dust when you take it out of the, however you grind it. And it adds a nice seafood taste. That's what you want to get that salmon-like flavor. And like for after, you know, after this has been in overnight, so it's got a nice smell that nori really makes a big difference. And then I'm going to make the little cream cheese thing. So this is very simple. I started, you can use soy milk, that's what it says, but I started with Kite Hill's Greek style, just so it will go a little bit faster because it's already thicker. And this is how easy this is. You just take a strainer, line it with cheesecloth, and dump the yogurt in. Can't get easier than this, but of course you have to wait overnight. The longer you have it wait, the longer, the more moisture gets out, so the thicker the cream will be. I used to do this back in our Dan and yogurt days. My mom loved the coffee flavor and the lemon, and I would do it with that and make a nice spread. So you could also season this. All I'm going to do is put a little bit of salt in, but you could really flavor it all different ways. That's it. That's how simple that was to make. I'm just going to turn it around. Now, there's not going to be as much liquid on that because, like I said, it was the Greek yogurt, Greek style almond milk. And this is from last night. So I'm going to put this into a container and you can see how thick it is. One of those days. Okay. So can you see that's nice and thick? And I can put a little bit of salt because that's got a lot of the, it's a very sour taste with it just being the yogurt. So I'm just going to put a little bit of salt in here to counter that a bit. And that's the cream cheese. Give that a little mix. I've got some gluten-free muffins, which I say if you have to have gluten-free bread, it's kind of a world of hurt. There aren't a lot of good options and you really need a good imagination. I think these are from the same company that makes Ezekiel bread. It's a seed version and it needs to be toasted. But, this is all stuff that happened I did last night. So I would just spread this on. You could put it on a cracker or whatever kind of bread you use. And this is a nice thing to have as a brunch where people can do their own and put whatever they want on it. I have a few different options. Options are really endless. Like everything pretty much that Vicki and I show you, you can do so many different things with. Then I'm going to just try to drain as much of this off. Put that on. We'll just do a couple. Making a mess. And then this one I had some tomatoes. You could put avocado, you can put whatever you like, but I've got a little bit of tomato and some red onion, cucumbers, some pepper, and I have a little fresh dill. Just see how you could make, just set everything out like capers or whatever things people would like, avocado. You can just, like I said, the possibilities are endless. And then this is what my finished one looks like. And I'm gonna find my ingredients as soon as this class is over. So back to you.
That looks delicious. That looks so good. So my last one is super, super easy. And I just feel like, you know, potatoes are such a great addition to a brunch or breakfast. So this is a really easy way to get some potatoes on the table. And so I call it a panini pressed potatoes. It's really just the idea of kind of extending batch cooking, making lots of something early in the week that you can use throughout the week, which I do with potatoes regularly. Made 5 pounds of potatoes, baked them in the oven, and the leftovers can be warmed up on a panini press if you have one. If you don't have a panini press, you can actually just use a skillet and just put maybe something heavy over it, or just flip them, just, you know, kind of fry them up in a dry skillet with some heat. So I've got a couple of, I'm just going to unplug this panini press, but I'm going to show you how we do this. I just take some leftover potatoes, these are cold, and I'm slicing each of them into ovals, slicing each of these potatoes into basically 4 pieces. But you know, that's it can basically be, if your potato's a little bigger and you need to make 6, or a real small one and it only needs to be divided in half, you know, you'll know. But I'm making these roughly ½ inch thick, something like that. So I've got these ovals that now I'm going to be able to season, and I'm putting on some smoked paprika. Sometimes I add hot sauce. I'm just going to do a little smoked paprika. You could add a little salt if you use salt. And then I'm going to put them on a panini press that's hot for about 5 minutes. And here's what they end up looking like. These beautiful grilled potatoes. Sometimes I put a little dipping sauce that I'll make with it, which can just be as easy as yogurt with a little bit of hot sauce and maybe some mustard, or just a little salsa with yogurt. But yeah, these are ready to enjoy, nice and hot. And here's our brunch. So that's how easy that is.
Okay, back to me.
Back to you, Michele.
Right, I am making the next thing, and I actually do have all my stuff for it. I'm making little vegan, they're little whole food plant-based cinnamon rolls. So first, like Vicki said, it sounds like you don't have trouble finding your ripe bananas. I do. It seems like whenever I go in with the intention of getting a good bunch of ripe ones, they look like baby spinach. They're all green. So there are things, now the tricks I'm going to give don't work for when they're that dark, but there are just some things to make them ripen a little faster. So one way you probably know is the paper bag way. I don't ever find this to be the fastest way to get ripe bananas, but these have been in over 24 hours and they're about to here. I want the bananas for this, I want to be spotted, but I don't want them like banana bread kind of brown. So a little bit past that would be good. The next one is putting them into a plastic bag. As you can see, it's a little steamy in here. That's because the gas that they give off that helps ripen them gets trapped in the bag, which makes them ripen faster. Another thing you can do is put another ethylene producing item in there, like an apple, to speed up that process. And then when you know that's how that works, you can work it to your advantage and not put those foods together to make them stay, like prevent them from ripening too quickly. And another way I use a lot is to just put them in the oven. Now they have to be yellow. They can't be green, but they can be pretty bright yellow without any brown spots. And I put them in the oven on a tray because they will leak a little bit at 300 degrees. These were after 4 minutes. So they're riper. And if you want to make banana bread, you just keep them in for longer, but watch them because they turn pretty quickly. So I take the bananas and I cut them into strips. So I'm going to try. It doesn't always go the way you want with these. If you have a curvy one, sometimes they'll break, but don't worry about that. It's okay. And just into little, let me see here. Take the end off and I go. Usually try to focus on a line, you know, the lines in the banana so I can follow that. If you have a dehydrator, that's great. If you don't, that's fine too. You want to take the little strings off because those don't come out really well after being dried. And then just carefully turn them over because they will break pretty easily. So just doing this is another one of my several steps thing, but all very easy steps. Okay, so I just keep going like that and get those. And then what I did was I put some in the dehydrator. You do 115 degrees for 6 to 8 hours. You have to check them. This is a two-parter. You want to get the bananas mostly dehydrated, and then we're putting a topping on it, a spread, and then we're going to put that on the banana strips and then go back into the oven or the dehydrator. So I'm going to mix up the date paste. I did change it a little bit from what's on the recipe. So I will be sure to tell you that, and Olivia, maybe we can add it. So I've got dates. This really needs a high-speed blender. It works a lot better with a high-speed blender. These are just a cup of dates. I'm always going to say when you're working with dates to make sure you look at inside, even if you've got like a brand new package and they seem pretty fresh, there's usually one little stinker in there at least that has brown spots like seeds or black molds. You want to be really careful. Make sure you have clean that out. Next I have about a teaspoon of cinnamon, teaspoon of vanilla, so if you're doing it in the oven, you want to preheat the oven to 250. A lot of ovens these days have a dehydrator feature, but I usually don't want to keep my oven going that long because it, like I said, the whole process would be about 12 to 14 hours. So I do the 250 way a lot. You're putting them on a baking tray, you know, you don't want to overcrowd them because you want the air to circulate really well. Put them in for an hour if you're baking them. If you have smaller strips that break, don't worry, you can kind of roll those in. I made little ones because I think they're cute and they're just a little bite size, but you could just keep rolling the strips and make as big a roll as you want. So then after you have baked them for an hour, take them out, let them cool. And they kind of look like this. So I'm going to put water. I need a little bit of water. Like I did, even though I have a Vitamix, I did soak them because it does help. You want these really smooth. So here we go. Just scrape the sides down and go a little bit more. You always want to make sure you don't have a stem or a pit in there because it not only doesn't taste good, but it doesn't sound so great either. Okay, here we go. A little bit more water. Now you adjust the cinnamon and the vanilla accordingly. Like, you know, you could start with half the amounts I just said, and then taste it. And if you want more, put more on that. And then what I'm going to do is take these little strips. There we have this done. So it's nice and spreadable. I'm just putting a thin layer on the banana strip. This is pretty sweet with the dehydrated banana and the date mix. So I put a little pecan or chopped pecan, however you like to say it, in there. That little savory food takes the sweetness down a little bit. And then you just carefully, you can see that, roll it up. And that's just a little baby one, if you can see that, how that looks. Then I'll do another one. They do, you know, shrink when they're in the oven like that. So it's nice to start off with bigger bananas. Now, just today, I thought it would be kind of nice to have a little something to put on here. So I made a little icing. It's cashews and maple syrup. Okay, that will go back in the oven, but I'm going to tell you about this icing. I can give it to Olivia. Put these back in the oven for an hour and they come out like this. You see that? Little baby cinnamon rolls. You can make them, like I said, you can make them as big as you want, but I like having little bite sizes like that. I feel like I've had a whole one. It's not a lot of food. So then I made, this is cashews, maple syrup, a little bit of plant milk, some vanilla, and I put in a little orange zest and yeah, vanilla. There you go. So I'm just putting that, just processed it. A little orange. I have some fresh squeezed orange juice. I'm just going to put a little bit on top. Put the bacon on the side here. The darker pieces were the ones that were cooked longer. A couple of those up. And actually, I didn't put sriracha on the ones I put in the oven for the shorter time. But that is my brunch, and I wish we could all eat together. There we go.
That looks beautiful, Michele.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'd have a nice buffet together if we could share.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, all of those recipes look wonderful. Definitely, as always, jealous. Wish we could all try them for ourselves. Okay, so we do have a few questions so far. The first for Vicki is just, in the muffins, are the berries chopped or whole?
They are whole, but you could chop them if you wanted them to be a little bit smaller. I like that big burst of flavor, so I leave them whole. But that's a great question, because when I use cherries, they are a little larger, and I do usually, even though they're frozen or slightly frozen, I will chop those into, at least 2 pieces for each cherry, just to spread them out a little bit more. So that's just kind of a great way to customize it to whatever you prefer.
Okay, yeah, very nice. All right. For Michele, you were talking about how some tempeh is gluten-free and some is not. Is the
Yes.
particular tempeh you used gluten-free?
Oh, yes, because I am gluten-free, and it's, where did I just put it? Yeah, this, Light Life is, I get the tempeh, the original, and it doesn't have anything in it. I always have you check the back again. I always want you to check the back to make sure it's not gray or black. And then they have a lot of different varieties. Like they have one that's bacon flavor, got the seasonings for that, but it's got other stuff. I'd rather make it myself and not put in those additives. But I like this kind of, get it at Whole Foods. I think Meijer has it, so you can get it a lot of places. But the one at Trader Joe's is, it's got other grains, so it is not gluten-free.
Okay, awesome. Let me see. Someone just had a general question about silicone pans, asking, 1, if they're safe for baking, and then 2, if you oil them at all before you use them, if that's necessary.
So with mine, Michele, I can take this one unless you want it.
Go right ahead.
I have a lot of different shapes of the silicone pans, and these are baking quality. So you'll just make sure that it's a brand that says that you trust. And they're usually good up to, like, sometimes 500 degrees, sometimes over 400, in general. So they are food safe. And once you are using these, you do not need to oil, unless, of course, you choose to, but you won't need to, because each of these wells are flexible. So you'll be able to actually push up from the bottom to release the baked good from the pan without using any oil.
I just want to add that I kind of do a smell test on some of them, because some of the silicone from different companies that I haven't really heard of, they can have sort of a chemical smell, and I don't touch those. I go for brands I know. Now Vicki has more than I do, but I do have a lot of them too. I love those. They're very easy, and they make life a lot easier, really.
In case someone wants to know, these are made by Trudeau, and I actually got these at Sur La Table, and you can find them for less. These cost maybe a little more than some that you can get on other, Amazon and things like that. But I, like Michele, want to make sure that they're safe. So I do go for the name brand. So.
And the nice thing about that kind, because I'm sure Vicki did too, you get one and then they come up with a better one. The ones I have, they didn't have any stability. They're just kind of floppy. So now the one she has, I have that kind too. It's got a firmer handle if you lift that up again, and it's very nice. It's going to be more stable in and out of the oven, which is
they've got a wire rim around them, so they are stable. I have, as Michele described, I've been using these for a long time. This one was made by Wilton, and I have this kind as well, and that's what I made my first batch in. And this last one, I'll show you, I can pop this last one out without, the whole pan really is just about clean. And they rinse up really well. You can put them in the dishwasher too. But I prefer these now that they make them with the rim when I can get them. And they come in fun shapes. You can get them in little, small mini size and little mini bread loaf size and brownie bite size. And I've got a wide variety. I use them all the time.
Mhm.
Awesome. Yeah, very nice. Yeah, I have a couple as well, but they don't have that extra added stability. So yeah, I should definitely get one of
Yeah,
those.
that's a newer
Mhm.
upgrade. Yeah,
Definitely. I definitely see the
but they
benefit
still
of
work.
that
Oh
for
yeah, the other
sure.
ones are fine. It's just making life a little bit easier.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, it looks like we just have two more questions. Um, Vicky, for your tofu scramble, do you ever add black salt to have it like an eggy taste? Do you have any feeling about that or personal preference?
You know, you absolutely can. I don't like the eggy taste anymore. So
Mhm.
I don't choose to use that, but I know that's a really popular way to make it taste more like eggs. So
Mhm.
absolutely feel free to do that. That's a nice suggestion to make it a little more eggy.
And I just wanted to add to it, because we do use it, it has a little sulfury taste. When we first got, because it's black salt, right? So you go to the store and you're looking for salt that is black, and that's not it. So I had like 3 or 4 different kinds. My mom bought me some. I kept trying it. It's kalanomic. It's kind of a pink gray, but that's what adds that eggy flavor if you are interested. You don't have to be, but we do like it.
Awesome. Okay, looks like the last question we have is someone asked, is it okay to use unsweetened carob chips in these recipes or other plant-based recipes? I don't know if they're specifically talking about maybe the roll-ups, I mean the cinnamon rolls, or I think they're just asking in general, like, is that a good plant-based food to use?
Yeah, and I think I is looking at the other ingredients for one thing, what else they have in them. And if you're trying to be whole food and you don't want fat, I mean, there's fat in carob chips. I mean, that's stabilizers and things to hold that shape when they're baking. So there are other things. So if I'm not sure what the concern is, but you sure you can use them. You're just going to look at the other ingredients.